All right, so we have a couple people here in the room, and I guess we can get started. It's 7 o'clock. Hello, everybody. I'm Mary Lynn Maloney with the Orland Park Public Library. I'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's program with the Museum of Bad Art, also known as MOBA MOBA. The Museum of Bad Art collects, exhibits, and celebrates art that will be seen in no other venue. Since 1993, they have collected art from thrift stores, yard sales, sidewalk trash, and even the artists who create it. They analyze, compare to classic art, and share with thousands of fans around the world. Tonight, we'll be making a visit to the MOBA Zoo. Artists love to capture their furry, feathered, and fishy friends. This collection of sincere original art includes treasured pets, exotic creatures in the wild, and animals that exist only in the artist's imagination. Joining us from the MOBA are Curator-in-Chief Michael Frank and Permanent Acting Interim Executive Director Louise Sacco. If you have questions as we go along, please put them in the Q&A or the chat box, and we'll ask our guest to address the questions after the main presentation. We may also open it up to spoken question and answer if anyone has questions later on, and we can let you be unmuted. One final note, the program is going to be recorded and then put on our YouTube channel, and will be available to view until August 30th. So if you have friends that miss it tonight, let them know, and it'll be up on our Orland Park Library YouTube channel in a couple of days. And now I'm delighted to turn the program over to Michael Frank.
Someone told me it's all happening at the zoo. I do believe it. I do believe it's true. At the zoo. 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 At the zoo.
Good evening. Thank you, Marilyn. Welcome to this curator talk in which we will explore the MOBA Zoo Gallery of the Museum of Bad Art. I am Michael Frank, Curator-in-Chief. I'm speaking to you from high in the Museum of Bad Art, Ivory Tower. As Curator-in-Chief, I scour the thrift stores, yard sales, and interesting piles of trash, looking for appropriate art for our collection. I'm also happy to receive art donated by fans of the museum from around the world. And of course, it's my awesome duty to interpretate every piece before sharing it with the public. Some of the images are so vexing that merely interpreting them would be insufficient. Louise Riley Sacco is a permanent interim acting executive director of the museum. She'll be co-hosting. She's in a separate location in the Museum of Bad Art Executive Office Suite. You're welcome to use the chat function or the Q&A function to ask questions along the way. Louise will be monitoring them and answering any questions she can along the way. Otherwise, we will have a time for questions and answers a little later. So we have some ground to cover. Let's jump right in. Here at the Museum of Bad Art, we collect pieces that we believe to have been created in an honest attempt to make art, but in which something has gone wrong, either in the execution or the original concept. Poor technique might result in compelling images, or more interesting are the pieces that show some command of technique, but questionable decisions along the way by the artist. Sometimes the artist just loses control of the imagery. There are upwards of 600 pieces in the MOBA collection. So to make things more manageable, we've divided them into smaller collections or galleries. The majority of the collection are representations of people. We call them portraits. Doppelhangers are portraits that, intentionally or not, resemble famous people. Every major museum has religious imagery, and MOBA is no exception. Every major museum contains life studies, and MOBA is no exception, although it's not evident that all the artists in our collection have actually seen another naked person. The MOBA sports section is where you'll see people running, jumping, fighting, playing. Unlikely landscapes and still lifes is where the imagery sometimes goes astray. And we have an impressive number of paintings of eyeballs in various contexts, reflecting the age-old belief that eyes are the portals to the soul. And of course, the MOBA Zoo, which we will explore tonight. All the art in our collection is important to us, but not necessarily important art. Auguste Renoir painted this trio of important paintings in 1883. Dance at Beaucheval, Dance in the Country, and Dance in the City. Dance at Beaucheval is here in Boston at the Museum of Fine Arts. The other two are in Paris. We have none of these in our collection, but we do have Blue Tango, where we see a stylishly handsome couple mid-step as they glide across the floor, cheek to cheek. We have many paintings of dogs in the collection. In addition to cataract-impaired vision, this poor dog seems to be dealing with an unfortunate ear infection. The relative sizes of the dog and flagpole offer a clue into the intensity of the artist's love for his pet and his country. Another painting with interesting perspective is Big White Dog. And I find his painted toenails especially. Looks like he cut himself shaving, and he has very, very nice painted toenails. The viewer is struck by the gleam in this sweet little dog's eyes. She wears a bell on her choke collar, and her body is mysteriously absent. The artist eloquently challenges the viewer to re-examine old concepts of landscape with this remarkable fusion of ski resort and puppy, stoic in yellow-eyed silence as he sits frozen beneath the ice-capped peak. This is a delightful example of what we call labor-intensive pointlessism. Mary Newman is a prolific artist from Minneapolis whose outsider art is featured in museums around the country. When I asked her about the inspiration for this image, she said she could not afford to buy canvases and found this one. This is an odd shape. This is about 4 feet by 1.5 feet. So she tried to think of an image appropriate for this odd size canvas. I think she did pretty well. The artist painted this sweet portrait of her daughter Mary and her dog almost 80 years ago. While hairstyles come and go, smoky eye has been a constant for generations. No longer able to tolerate the incessant barking, Charlie the Chipmunk used a classic Band-Aid Stars and strip to tape Sheba the sheepdog's mouth shut before posing with her on the picnic table. Pomeranians have distinctive tails that are feathered and fanned forward over the back, as well as luxurious coats in a variety of colors. Most of them have legs and feet as well. The artist's affection for her dog outstrips her artistic skill. She was in such a hurry that the canine anatomy was not even considered. It appears this precocious pup has just lapped up all the spilled eggnog at a holiday party and is ready to break out into song.
Is I'll be there in the sunshine or in the shadow. Oh, Danny boy, I love you so.
The exquisite corpse is reminiscent of Frida Kahlo's self-portraits. The wires from her earbuds are not strong enough to close her chest wound. The perfectly manicured dog gazes directly at the viewer, but offers no insight into the woman's marshmallow hat, the fried eggs on her left and right, or the little guy on her left shoulder who seems very excited to be there. The artist employed a no-holds-barred approach to graphically depict the archetypical news non-event. Painting on the inside cover of a Konstnären magazine, which is Swedish for artists magazine, the artist allowed the underlying red graphic to bleed through his paint, helping express the psychic pain driving the animal to resort to such violent behavior.
He was a friend of mine. He was a friend of mine.
The artist is a skilled watercolorist, as is evident by his knowledgeable use of negative space to create the ghostly husky. The eyes of the cat bring a discordant, evil glint to an otherwise soft and peaceful scene. The cat seems to be asking, who else thinks it's a good idea to eat from my bowl? Meanwhile, at the beach, two bathers' frantic calls for help go unnoticed as another life and death drama unfolds between the identically colored crab and cat. So it's said that dogs have owners, but cats have staff. This painting represents a comment on issues of power as experienced by those who dwell with feline pets. Is the artist consumed by his love for his cat? Pussycats are fine, but it's clear that the public enjoys looking at big cats. It's 3 a.m. and the full moon rises in the city. The young couple regrets they did not heed the warning that nothing good happens after 2 a.m. It's interesting to ponder the fate of the owner of the rucksack next to a Bengal tiger standing in shallow water. It's probably safe to conclude that the owner has abandoned the pack and is the object of Bruno's hungry, vaguely man-faced gaze. A polydactyl lion, you can count the toes. A polydactyl lion poses, fresh from his color and blowout appointment at the salon. Once again, all the art in our collection is important to us, but not necessarily important art. This painting is in the Museum of Modern Art. It's an important painting by Paul Klee. It's a whimsical expressionist painting that was a conscious attempt to create art reflecting childlike innocence. Art historians infer that the cat is thinking about the bird in his head. Paul Klee's paintings sell at auction for over $5 million, way beyond our budget. But we do have Sphinx knot. We have no idea what this cat is thinking about. The ancient Egyptian Sphinx denotes wisdom and power with its human head and lion's body. In the painting, we see quite the opposite, as the not so noble feline with the skinny man's body rests his face in his hands in a classic pose indicating despair and confusion. Knowing his species does not swim, a lone giraffe stays very close to the beach as he walks gingerly in a rough sea. Perhaps he has strayed so far from his normal grassy savanna habitat in a desperate search for relief from the noxious yellow cloud that hovers incessantly around his head. I spent many hours attempting to decipher the grotesque faces, disjointed body parts, amorphous shapes, paint drips, and other abstract elements in this work. The obvious conclusion, the pink elephant in the room, as it were, is that they are simply there to provide textural background for Pearl, who dances joyfully over everything. The donor of this painting wrote that it was a gift from the artist early in their romantic relationship. Years later, when that relationship was finished, she decided to donate the work to MOBA. She wrote, "What says love like a dead plant and an emaciated, dead-eyed zebra?" So we're very excited here. The Red Sox are in first place, and I understand the White Sox the White Sox are also in first place. And for the Cubs, there's always next year. In this painting, the Red Sox runner successfully avoids the catcher's tag at the plate, only to be swallowed by a mysterious beast. The viewer is left to wonder why he decided to return home from first base. This painting is the result of unrequited love. The artist sublimated his rage after being spurned by a Russian woman by representing himself as the legendary abominable snowman in a fearsome pose. Upon completing the self-portrait, he took it to an open field and shot it with a shotgun. This is how we received it and how it looks today. This moving work portrays the departure of the spirit of a noble fowl whose head recalls the handle of a child's umbrella. And along the same lines, the viewer is left to ponder the cause of, as well as the artist's decision to memorialize this fish's demise. A centaur and a motorcyclist race on a beach to determine how much progress has been made since the Greek gods reigned. The artist who donated this painting made the interesting decision to depict 1.5 cows in a pastoral plein air painting while avoiding the inconvenience of actually going outside. Without giving the viewer any indication of the fowl's reasoning process, the artist has portrayed a chicken in the foreground crossing a road deep in the forest. The black bunny in the distance does not seem to care why the chicken is coming, but is intent upon getting to the other side. Returning home from a hard day at work, Super Chicken finds dinner on the table. He is not amused. Two or more artists contributed to this work, in which we are reminded when walking the desert at night to remain focused. This next painting, Ferret in a Brothel, is a classic in the collection. Here's a short educational video about the painting.
Ferret in a Brothel, anonymous, 24 inches by 18 inches, oil on canvas. For centuries, master painters have found prostitutes in their work environment to be a rich and interesting source of thematic material. The anonymous painter of this work has inexplicably chosen to depict a ferret as a lady of the evening in a Victorian room featuring flowered wallpaper and luxurious velvet curtains. She wears only a long pearl necklace and gazes provocatively at the viewer as she dances unashamedly to the music playing on a vintage record player. The reversed eighth notes may hint at secret meaning in the music being played backwards, or, more likely, may simply reflect the artist's unfamiliarity with proper music notation.
I hope you found that informative. This is the Song of a Robin. The young woman's head is slightly atilt under the weight of impossibly orange hair in this idyllic tableau. A tiny songbird has flown from the dwarf tree bearing 2 green apples and lit onto a one-dimensional chair, contemplating the coiffure as a potential new home. And here's the song of a seagull. Unlike the sacrificial canaries in a coal mine, the seagulls in this metaphorical painting are free to leave when they sense conditions are deteriorating. And this is the song of a northern flicker. It's related to a woodpecker. The artist boldly jumps into the natural selection versus creationism debate, but by portraying what may have resulted if the intelligent designer had made some different decisions. And on the subject of intelligent design, in this painting, the artist graphically illustrates his or her belief about the origin of species. A few more words of explanation may have helped communicate his or her belief. And this painting is one of those where the imagery has really gotten out of control. Reminiscent of Judith clutching the head of Holofernes, teary-eyed Lady Liberty celebrates her victory over the enemy and hopes peace can return to the city. You can see here the Twin Towers burning. Here's the New York City skyline and the aircraft carrier Intrepid, which is permanently docked in the Hudson River. In other news, her jaundiced bald eagle has caught a very large fish. This appears to be a blow-up doll mounted atop a giant lobster. It may be an unfinished study for a larger, hopefully more realized work. It may have been inspired by Deborah Winger riding a mechanical bull in the 1980 film Urban Cowboy. And just in case you found that clip offensively misogynistic, we have Playboy bunnies. This is another painting by Mary Newman, who gave us Bone Juggling Dog with a hula skirt. Here she portrayed anatomically incorrect rabbits to make an important, if confusing, statement about gender politics. Rather than portraying the Easter bunny hippity-hopping among colorful spring flowers signifying rebirth, the artist has chosen to depict an angry hare sneering as dying autumn leaves fall in this disturbing yet compelling image. Pink Amazon river dolphins, Inia geoffrensis, known locally as botos, live in the Amazon and Orinoco River basins in South America. Males have been observed using their penis to penetrate other males or females' blowholes. They are among the few species known to engage in recreational nasal sex. And here, the artist has portrayed the late Shamu, the killer whale, mid-breach after enjoying a sushi dinner. Perhaps she is celebrating the news that SeaWorld will no longer present inhumane orca theatrical shows. And of course, we know nothing of the former occupant of the life preserver floating in the roiling sea. Fearing the oil slick that threatened to spoil their environment, the birds and fish flew south in search of cleaner water. Iridescent moon jellyfish swim around classic ruins under a colorful constellation of stars and planets. One of the 7 death masks that litters the floor wears a necklace featuring what may be the key to understanding this bewildering image. A scholarly fan of the museum observed that entasis is well captured in the ruins here. So we did not know what entasis is, so we did some research. And as it turns out, entasis is almost universal in classical architecture. It's the convex curve given to a column in an attempt to correct the optical illusion of hollowness or weakness that would arise from normal tapering. You can see here there's a slight bulge on either side, and it's more pronounced on these columns. Some modern examples of entasis include classic Coke bottles, not Pepsi, bowling pins, and Mrs. Robinson's leg in The Graduate.
And here's to you, Mrs. Robinson. Jesus loves you more than you will know. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
A few female foxes feature radiant red hair and bright baby blue eyes. Many males of the species find them irresistibly attractive. And this painting was found by a 10-year-old boy in the trash. He was very proud to donate it to the museum. It speaks for itself. His mount offers some serious side-eye as a corporal in the Union Army reports to his commanding officer. The men stand on terra firma while the horse levitates above the tall grass. This is a painting by the surrealist Rene Magritte. It's called The Therapist. He made many versions of The Therapist from 1937 into the 1950s. All the versions feature a pair of doves in a birdcage with the door open. While Magritte never explained the imagery explicitly, it's generally believed that the bird outside the cage represents the psychotherapist, trying to coax the other bird to free himself from the dark and lonely interior confinement. We do not have any of these in the MOBA collection, but we do have Desert Still Life. At first glance, this seems to be a painting of a seated woman wearing a large sun hat and sensible shoes. Upon further examination, the viewer cannot help but notice that her head and torso have been replaced by an anatomically incorrect ring-necked pheasant perched in an oil lamp. The incongruity of the scene is lost on the marmot munching on a seed behind the chair. This is a gruesome bisection of an earthworm. It's difficult to discern whether the section on the left is the front or the back. Probably information only useful to another earthworm. These are photographs I made of my late red-eared slider turtles. This is Tiny on the bottom and Fluffy on the top. Tiny, Fluffy. This was the only trick that they knew. They would perform it from time to time. When they would not do it on command, they would do it when they felt like it. This is the death-defying 2-terrapin pyramid. While we're at the circus, in this image, the artist has created a colorful and texturally rich homage to Mother Nature. In addition to the secular Madonna and baby, there's a lot to look at in this piece. There's real birch bark glued to the trees, real birch leaves, and real maple leaves. I hesitate to speculate what's going on down here, but there are a number of little animals in the forest. The tiny snail is painted, and a real butterfly is glued to the canvas. She has one green arm and one brown arm, and her hair is half blue, half yellow. Adding to the sense of rich texture is her plaster left hand and face. One eye is a rainbow, the other is the sun. Featuring wings that probably won't fly, chicken feet, donkey ears, a pointy bill, and eyes like an Egyptian, this swan is an odd duck. Oh, and by the way, as a rule, swans are vegetarians. They do not eat fish. But speaking of strange animals, Dr. Greg Mertz, Director of Medicine and Programs at the New England Wildlife Center in South Weymouth, Massachusetts, is known as the odd pet vet. He said this is among the oddest he has ever seen, as he identified a number of the animals represented in this piece of creative taxidermy. You can see the armadillo body. These are the front feet of a deer. You can see the turtle shell here. And he identified that the teeth is coming from a raccoon. And finally, the artist presents a coachman's eye view of a deserted street in a generic Mediterranean village. The anonymous painter of this work made the unusual artistic decision to concentrate on the part of the horses that left the stable last. So I'd like to share with you something very exciting. This took place about 10 days ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. One evening, Louise and I were giving a presentation like this, and our phones lit up. And it was not until we finished, we were able to check the messages that we realized that this happened in the broadcast of Jeopardy.
That's right. Art and artist for 800, please.
Ferret in a brothel and Elvis descending a staircase are two of the terrible paintings in MOBA, the Museum of This. Sandy.
What is bad art?
Good.
So I kind of take exception to calling the paintings terrible, but I do appreciate the fact that people know the national publicity and the fact that people know about us. Sandy won $800 for knowing about us. So of course, no trip to the museum would be complete without exiting through the gift shop. Here at the gift shop, you can find t-shirts, mugs, calendars, books, postcards, and all kinds of other stuff. To get to the gift shop, you go to our website, museumofbadart.org, and click on the shop, the word shop on the top menu. While you're there, it's not too late to get a copy of the 2021 official Museum of Bad Art wall calendar. The theme this year was doppelgangers. Images these are images that intentionally or not look like famous people. If you really want to fill your walls with MOBA art, this is an efficient way to do it. You can also get a copy of the 2020 calendar or the 2019 calendar. In addition, while they're kind of going out of style, there still are occasions when you'll need a face mask. So why not get one and get a nice one? This is Lucy in the Field with Flowers. This was the painting that began the collection back in 1993. This is Pablo Presley, a cross-cultural interpretation of an American icon. And here we have Mona Lisa, a cross-gender version of the Da Vinci classic. If you'd like to, if you're interested in one of these masks, you won't find it in the gift shop. You just send us an email at moba@museumofbadart.org. And that's a good email address. If you'd like to reach us for any reason, if you have any comments or questions, you can always reach us at moba@museumofbadart.org. If you'd like to support the museum by donating money, you can do that once again at our website, museumofbadart.org/donate. And if you would like to donate art, if you find something in your basement or at a thrift store or at a yard sale and you think it's appropriate for our collection, send me a photo at curator@museumofbadart.org. And if I agree it's appropriate for our collection, I'll let you know. Well, I'll let you know how I feel about it either way. But if I believe it belongs in the collection, I'll be happy to tell you how to get it to us. So from time to time, we send shows out on the road. This summer, we have a show that's currently in downtown Quebec, in the old city of Quebec. We have over 100 paintings filling this beautiful exhibition hall. It's part of the Passage Insolite Art Festival in Quebec. Right now the border is not open, but we're hoping that it will open this summer, and Louise and I will have the chance to visit. And if it does open and you find yourself going in that direction, check it out. The best ways to keep abreast of what we're up to, well, the easiest way is to follow us on Facebook. There you'll see hundreds of paintings, and we'll make any announcements that we have to make. The nice thing about Facebook is that you can see all the paintings, and you have the opportunity to add your own 2 cents. You can join the conversation, opine, say what you think. If you go to our website at museumofbadart.org, you can see the collection divided into the various galleries I mentioned earlier. And if you go to our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/MOBA Curator/videos, you can see a copy of this and some other pre-recorded videos, including 30 short videos like the one we saw about Ferret in the Brothel. I think you'll find them educational and entertaining. So maybe we'll have a chance to visit the library once again. Some of the other programs that we do offer are MOBA 101, an introduction to the museum. Well, obviously, we just visited the MOBA Zoo. In the Nude is where we get to see naked people in the museum, living in tough times, giving all the problems we face these days. We examine works from the collection that reflect people dealing with difficult circumstances, everything from having a bad day to dystopian apocalypse. And we have a nice program about doppelgangers. So I hope you enjoyed your visit.
I'm a zoo. I'm a zoo. I'm a zoo. I'm a zoo. I'm a zoo.
And with that, I will stop sharing my screen.
That was delightful, Michael. I'm glad I turned off my mic early on because I was giggling so much.
Well, nice, good.
We have a thank you here from Sarah. And I think, Louise, I don't know if you got any Q&As or anything like that.
No, didn't see any questions, but if people have them now, we'd be glad to unmute you and let you speak in person if you'd like. No?
We're just
Any
totally overwhelmed.
questions, any comments from anyone?
No? Oh, there is a question. Let's see.
Good.
Is it too late to ask how you come about them? I'm not sure what that means.
So, yeah, well, no, I understand. The question is where do these pictures come from?
Ah.
So these, first of all, I should tell you that we actually have all these paintings. These are not just things we find on the internet. We have these paintings. They're either found, either I find them in yard sales, thrift stores, or gift shops, occasionally on the side of the road in a pile of trash waiting for the truck pickup. When I look through the collection, I see that I'm responsible for about half of them. The other half are donated by fans of the museum around the world, who also find them in thrift stores, yard sales, and basements, or else that many are donated by the artists themselves. There's a number of the paintings we saw tonight were donated by the artists. And usually it's a case where the artist realizes that whatever he or she was trying to do just wasn't working out. And they realize that ours is the proper venue to share with the world.
In the early days of the museum, people would just leave art for us at the gallery, and much of it were pieces that we didn't want. They weren't interesting, or they weren't original art, or all kinds of reasons we didn't want them. So we started a tradition then that when we get pieces, and we still occasionally get something that we don't really want, people just send it without checking, and that gets put into the rejection collection. And every few years we have a rejection collection auction where each piece is accompanied by a certificate that said this piece was rejected by the Museum of Bad Art. And people can, we never say the reason, of course, people can tell themselves it was rejected because it's really good, if that's what they want to believe, or, but we don't say why it's rejected.
One of my favorite pieces that was just left at the gallery was what we called creative taxidermy. The one we saw near the end with the armadillo body and the turtle head that appeared, and it came in like a kind of a cage kind of contraption. But for the most part, this people used to leave things, and it was more common before email. Now it's so easy to share images. Most of it, we usually know what's coming.
Oh, Victor wants to know if we ever receive pieces that are really good, and what do we do with them? What would you do if that
Well,
happened,
I think
Mike?
they're all really good. I think they're all really good. Basically, I'm not, if you enjoy looking at it, I don't think calling it good or bad is really a useful exercise. So these are the images for whatever reason we enjoy. looking at the pieces in the collection. So I think they're pretty good for that. In terms of whether no, I don't, there are some pieces, I know that we do have some things that were commissioned and someone paid a lot of money for them. I don't know that that necessarily makes it any more valuable. I mean, so far, no traditional museums have made us an offer that we can't refuse for anything.
We did once try to engineer a swap with the Museum of Fine Arts here in Boston. We said we would take whatever they considered was their worst piece, and they could choose what they thought was our best piece, but they never followed up on that or took us up on the offer.
Any other questions or comments? No?
Okay,
I guess that's it.
we cover the waterfront.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you.
Oh, thank you, Michael and Louise. It's been just a great night, and I'm so glad we got to do this, and best of luck to the museum in the post-COVID times.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, I think there's one more question here.
An emergency
Or
question?
am I right? Am I wrong?
Yes. Oh, no, that it's a
You enjoyed
comment.
it?
Oh, a comment.
Right. Great. We
All
enjoyed
right.
having you here,
I'll
Victor.
type an answer. There you go.
All right. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you all for joining. And again, this will be on our YouTube channel in a couple of days. So if you had friends that missed it, let them know. All right. Good night, everyone.
Night.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you again.